Hey guys, welcome into the Crimson Quarry game recap for Indiana's 75-74 loss to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Indiana went up on the road to Minnesota, and of course I look like I just got through a rough day at work because that's exactly what happened to Indiana. A really rough day at work. In general, I think the best way to quantify that game, I think we were talking about it throughout the day, is the fact that was just horrible basketball, back and forth. Oh, by the way, introductions.
Yeah, come on.
I'm Eddie Cotton from the Crimson Quarry. I'm tired. It's like 12.
It's 1 a.m.
1 in the morning.
It's 1 a.m.
Why are there 9 p.m. games?
9 p.m. games should be banned.
I'm so tired. I'm Eddie Cotton. Alongside me, Zan Piarley from the Indiana Daily Student. Of course, we're going to keep the same crew coming on. Pretty much what we're talking about is how it was just back and forth, terrible basketball. Indiana only shooting 35% from the field. Minnesota shooting 39% from the field. And the big question mark, I think, before the game was how were the juniors going to play? After last game against Michigan, Tom Crean, of course, coming out criticizing the juniors for kind of being selfish. And I think everyone pinpointed that being directed at James Blackman Jr., Robert Johnson. James Blackman, he responded. He had 22 points. He took a lot of shots, but he made a good deal of shots. Robert Johnson, 0 for 6 from the field. 0 points. What is wrong with him?
I really don't know what's wrong with Robert Johnson, and it's really just been over the past couple of games. I think he's 9 of 39 in the last 3 games shooting the basketball, and that's not good. He's just really in a shooter's funk right now. I'm not really sure what they could do to get him out of it. I think everyone around him just has to play a little bit better, but tonight we did see Blackman rise to the occasion, but ultimately in the end, the support wasn't there enough from Bryant and Johnson, the big three for Indiana scoring-wise, ultimately leading them to the loss.
Now, something I know you take a lot of pride in now is a little project you've created.
Yes.
Is the 5-branch tree of Indiana's success.
See this? Right here.
I don't know if you can see it very well in the camera, but we'll describe it out for you. But it's a little tree that Zan's created for that pretty much quantifies whether Indiana is going to be successful in the game, looking at all 5 branches and then some sub-branches off of those. Now why don't you run us through the explanation of those branches, and how did Indiana perform according to your tree?
So according to my tree, this whole tree is founded on leadership. And when Indiana lacks leadership, then most likely it lacks in other areas as well. So the 5 main branches on here are turnovers, big 3 scoring, defense, post-production, and communication. Now we saw the turnovers at the beginning of the game. They were up, I think it was 9-8 really, and that 98 turnovers. Indiana had 9, Minnesota had 8, and those two kind of balanced each other out. The fact that Indiana was forcing turnovers, but they were still, causing their own turnovers as well, and that hurt them. It didn't let them get into any offensive rhythm, perhaps, but it didn't let Minnesota get too far ahead. And looking at the points off turnovers, 11 points off turnovers for Minnesota, 7 for Indiana. So while that's usually a concern for the Hoosiers most games, I mean it was tonight, but Minnesota was making their fair share of mistakes too, which let Indiana hang around a little bit. Big 3 scoring. We just talked about James Blackman Jr., 22 points. Thomas Bryant didn't make a bucket until 30 minutes into the game. Robert Johnson had 0 points, so that's pretty self-explanatory right there.
So going through your branches, we've gone through big 3 scoring and turnovers. You'd say Indiana is about a half?
Yeah, about a half.
A half out of 2 branches. 3 more branches to go to prove whether Indiana was going to be successful in this game.
The defense, I think the defense was there today for the most part. They held Minnesota to shoot just 29% in the first half, but then in the second half, Minnesota really turned it on and they did shoot 50%. So while it was there at the beginning of the game, we saw really the intensity that they came out with. They came out strong. They came out like they wanted to win this game. But then in the second half, I feel like that kind of dwindled down a little bit and it wasn't really their full team effort. But I mean, overall, defense was a strong point today for Indiana. Post-production was just nothing. De'Ron Davis got the start, and he played well when he was in there, but the fact that he only played 9 minutes and fouled out was a big reason why Indiana had nothing in the post, and Thomas Bryant was getting doubled. There was no one to compliment him. Duran started the game with Thomas, his second start of the year for Duran, but foul trouble really got him out of this game. And so that was really a non-factor for Indiana. And then communication as well. I think a couple times we saw them overhelp on defense and switching screens, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it really comes down to scoring production from your three leading scorers, and they didn't get that, and then they didn't get enough production out of the post tonight, with Duran getting in foul trouble, unfortunately, and Thomas just really being a non-factor down there.
So if you look at the tree of success, Indiana got about 2.5 of the 5 branches. So it's half.
Yeah.
You think they'd be close to successful, and
Exactly.
close to successful is a 75-74 loss.
Exactly.
Now, one of the big keys for Minnesota was their scoring from Nate Mason. He had 30 points on the night. Indiana just couldn't seem to find a way to stop him in any means.
No, and if you look at Nate Mason, 11 of his 12, he was 11 of 12 from the free throw line. So 11 points came from the free throw line, and Minnesota as a team was 21 of 28 from the. They got to the line 28 times. Indiana only got to the line 18 times, and we see this as kind of a reoccurring factor throughout the season. Is that Indiana isn't getting to the free throw line enough. I don't know if they're not going down low enough. We saw towards the end of the game, whenever Duran was down there making plays down low, he was getting fouled and he was going to the line. Same with Juwan Morgan. Whenever he tended to get down to the block and he was able to make things happen, he was able to get to the line. Juwan was actually 7 of 7 from the free throw line. So I feel like Indiana doesn't get down there enough to be successful and get down there enough to draw fouls, and that's whenever they end up, shooting too many threes or whatnot, and just not really getting to the line and not converting on the easy buckets.
And I think lastly, the most important thing to talk about, and make sure to be really one of the biggest sentiments of this game was, of course we've mentioned before, is De'Ron Davis. He was arguably the most effective guy on the floor again. Back-to-back games against Michigan, he was stellar. He's been stellar all season. Comes in and only plays 9 minutes tonight. He was so effective in the time he did play, but 3 fouls early on in the first half, only playing 3 minutes in the first half, really reeled him out this game. He had 3 back-to-back late buckets when Indiana was trying to take control of this game at the end of the game, and then he fouls out with 1:03 left to go. And it's just so frustrating because you see how successful him and Bryant can be together. Thomas Bryant, no points in the first half. That's because Davis played only 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. Thomas Bryant in the second half, I think he had 9 points, 11 points.
8
points.
points.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever. He was effective in the second half next to Davis.
Yes, exactly. And to your point, Eddie, Indiana took the lead with about 10 minutes left in the second half, and they held the lead the entire time. And Duran was on a roll. Juwan helped them get into it. Blackman shooting definitely helped them. But Duran fouls out, and on the foul that he commits, Minnesota goes to the line, makes both free throws, takes the lead. It's a different ball game from that stance. Indiana can't go back and feed the post, can't feed Davis. And then maybe if you even look on the last play, James Blackman doesn't block out Springs, but if De'Ron Davis was down low, maybe he grabs that rebound before Springs can even get there.
I completely forgot to mention that last play.
Yeah.
Yeah. James Blackman did not box out.
No, he didn't.
Oh, I don't even want to get into it, and I'm not going to. James Blackman just didn't box out on the game-winning shot. Just saying. And now, like we always going to have to do on these game recaps, looking forward, Indiana is going to go on the road for the next 3 of the next 4 games, correct?
Correct.
Still technically with a chance to make the tournament. If maybe you win all four of these games and win some games in the Big Ten tournament. Also, seemingly have a similar chance to not even make the NIT.
Yep.
If Indiana can't pull out 2 wins in their last 4, it's hard to make the argument that they'll make the NIT. What are your expectations moving forward?
I have 0 expectations for this team moving forward, honestly. I mean, they will get 6 days off before they play at Iowa, so I think they'll be able to correct a little bit some things that they're missing out, being able to watch more film. I mean, this is a long period of time. I don't think they've had this amount of days off in quite a while, so if anything, that will help them. But in all honesty, it's going to be really hard to win all 4 of these games, and looking forward to the NCAA tournament. They could easily lose all 4 of these games as well, which isn't ideal by any means. But I wrote in my article before the game that Indiana needed to win 4 out of these next 5 and make a little run in the Big Ten tournament. So far, getting off to a rough start at Minnesota, losing. And that just makes the road ahead even more tough, as they've already dug themselves into a deeper hole. Now they're also 11th in the Big Ten, so if they stay down that bottom 4 line, they'll be playing on Wednesday in the Big Ten tournament, and they won't get a single bye, they won't get a double bye. They'll have to play throughout the entire weekend if they want to even have a shot at the NCAA tournament.
So there's that. Indiana digging a huge hole for themselves, just like a Gopher would, as the Gophers beat the Indiana 75-74.